Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Uncle Mad here live Sunday night, January the 5th, 2025, post game for the Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans, and a lot of other NFL stuff, obviously, that went down today. The way things shook out, the way they broke down, the Tennessee Titans have ended the 2024 season as the worst team in football with the number one overall draft pick going into next season. Wormy, new person in the chat, said, "How's it going?" It's a weird day. I talked a lot about it on the vlog I was making that's going to come out tomorrow, but it's a weird feeling being a sports fan. Your team lost. It sucked. You never want your team to lose, but now the Titans have the first overall draft pick. The Tennessee Titans, my favorite team, have a good opportunity, a good spot, a good position to potentially reset things, get the franchise moving in the right direction. So while, not great to lose, sucks to have the season we had, we have put ourselves, in the best possible position to fix things quickly, move forward, getting things fixed in the right direction there. So we'll see. I wasn't originally going to do a live stream tonight. I even said I was recording some stuff for the vlog earlier where I was like, I'll give it a week, maybe next Friday, next Saturday, I'll come back, do a live stream, see how some things shuffle out. Because obviously a lot can happen between today and, even tomorrow. Tomorrow's Black Monday when we'll see a lot of firings across the NFL. We already saw one. I'll talk about a little bit. Jared Mayo, the Patriots coach, getting fired. So that was very interesting out of the gates there. We'll get into some of that a little bit later. But I thought it was like, so much happened. The Titans ended up having the first overall pick. The more I sat and stewed on it, the more I was like, let's jump on. Let's do a quick live stream. Let's just, shoot it. Let's just talk about it. Let's go through it and, share my instant reaction, instant thoughts, and kind of see where we go from there. Another comment from Wormy. Do you think we are going to let Schaff go? This is obviously a Nashville SC comment here, talking a little Titans tonight, but never too far away from my heart is Nashville SC. I do think there are moves being made to potentially prepare for Schaffelberg to be gone. Obviously, I couldn't remember his name, Gomez, Lopez, whatever, the midfielder we brought over for Galaxy. That was definitely something that was probably strengthening the wide positions, knowing that Schaffelberg might be on to Europe at some point in the future. We're pursuing a young, I believe, Swedish player or Swiss player. Hasn't fully gone through yet, but there's definitely moves to reinforce the wings, which normally you wouldn't think, looking at Nashville SC's roster, that'd be a place they need to go to unless, to Wormy's point, if Schaffelberg's on his way out, if he's going to get a big move to Europe, preemptively getting potential replacements in place there. Yeah, Swedish winger Wormy said in the chat there. Getting those players in place ahead of time is probably a good strategy there. But looking at the Titan stuff, it's crazy. So much had to happen over the last couple of weeks for the Tennessee Titans to end up with the number one overall draft pick, which, I think that was a big part of what kind of was really bringing me down about this team 2 or 3 weeks ago, because it felt like we've had a ton of seasons recently, 3 straight seasons, really. Everybody is just slobbing on the knob of Mike Vrabel right now. He is the second coming of Vince Lombardi. Welcome, he's going to be out there, just people teams might actually fire their current coach because Vrabel's out there, and it's he sucked the last 2 years in Tennessee. He's got to have some accountability for that, right? He had some great times here. I love Mike Vrabel, hand up. I did not think it was a good decision when we fired him, but the narrative that he's the second coming of Vince Lombardi out there is kind of crazy. But that's a whole another thing. But we had these terrible seasons the last couple of years with Vrabel. Some of the years going back to Ken Wisenhunt, where we were terrible, and we'd end up with the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th pick, which is the worst thing you can have as a football team, to constantly suck, but constantly not be in those key positions to be able to draft key, huge players that can really change your franchise, really get things turned in the right direction. And Jay Taylor said on one of them right here, he says, "Welcome to Nashville, Shedeur." And I think that's going to be the marquee one. That's going to be the one everybody's going to have a lot of attention on, whether it's him or not. That's going to be, he's, for lack of a better word, pardon the pun, he's prime time. That's going to be the spotlight position, the spotlight player in this draft process. A lot's going to happen between now and when the draft actually happens in April in terms of what the Titans actually do. I said earlier today, I was recording stuff for the vlog. If you follow the channel along, you'll see the vlog for tomorrow's game. My initial gut reaction, as soon as I found out the Patriots lost and that the Titans had secured the first overall draft pick, was I'm not 100% sold on Shedeur. I'm not 100% sold on Cam Ward. The Titans obviously need a quarterback. They obviously need a quarterback. That's huge. That's key. That's important. But like, I almost think we're in a spot where we could almost do what the Bears did a couple of years ago with their trade with the Panthers, where we could just find somebody that is just dead set on Shedeur, dead set on Cam Ward, and just get a boatload of picks because we need so much. We need a pass rusher so bad. We need at least one more offensive lineman so bad. We probably need a safety or some other defensive back so bad. Like it's not, a quarterback will help a lot. If we could get just an elite high level quarterback, it would fix so much. But like, I'm not at the point where I'm so sold on Shedeur or so sold on Cam Ward that I'm like, they're the guys that are going to fix the franchise. Whereas I look at it and think if we can get like a good player in a trade, multiple picks in a trade, this could be where we can really turn a corner and fix the overall roster. I want to pull up. I was looking at that Panthers Bears trade because that's the first one that came into my mind when I was thinking about like what we could possibly do with the first overall pick if we do not take a quarterback. So let me see. I pulled it up earlier. Let me get this up real quick. So in that trade, the Bears traded the first overall pick in that draft, which I believe was the 2023 draft, to the Panthers. And they got the Panthers' first pick, which was 9th overall, their second round pick, which was 61st overall. Next year, the 2024 first round pick, which they became Caleb Williams. Jury's out on that. We'll see how that plays out. Second round pick for this year's draft, 2025, and wide receiver DJ Moore. So the Bears got a haul to give up a spot for Bryce Young, which bounced back a little bit the second half of the season this year, but I think the jury is still pretty well out on it. I mean, certainly does not, he might come good. He might, be a solid player for Carolina, but looking at what they gave up, I don't know if you give up that much for that player. And I could see Shedeur, I could see Cam Ward being the same type of players. Could they be solid NFL players? Yeah, absolutely. They've definitely got the tools to do that. Are they going to be like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow? I'm not sold on that. And like, I'm thinking if you've got this first overall pick, whatever you do with it, you got to make sure it hits. You got to make sure you get it right. Richard Greenberg says, let's get your frustrations out tonight. It's good therapy. I got to say, I'm weirdly in a good mood. It's a weird feeling where, like, the Titans lost today. It sucked. You never want your team to lose, but to lose and you end up with the first overall draft pick, and it feels like you've got a really great opportunity in front of you to really right the ship. I feel pretty good, surprisingly. And then coming home and watching the United game on replay and seeing Manchester United tied Liverpool was also kind of helpful in, like, making it not the worst, most disastrous mood I could possibly be in. Richard also says, your owner is awful. I go back and forth. I struggle with Amy Adams. I think, one thing I can definitely say for sure is she wants to win. And I love that about her. There's so many owners in the NFL or in just pro sports in general who are just happy to own a team, happy to collect their paycheck, and I think Amy Adams wants to win. She's been making decisions that she thinks will help the team win. But you get question, are those the right decisions? Was firing Vrabel the right decision? Was, Rand Carthon the best possible choice to be our new general manager? Was Brian Callahan the best choice to be our new head coach? You can question those decisions. You can say, is that, the right decision? Is that the right way of going about things? But I don't doubt that she is doing what she thinks is in the best interest of the team to try and win. Are those good decisions? Maybe not. Maybe not. I mean, there's so many situations in the NFL, especially where you look around, you're like Jim Irsay in Indianapolis, Jerry Jones in Dallas, where you got these crazy old men who are just off their rockers and probably don't even know what side of the bed they're waking up on half the time, where it's, do we have the best ownership situation of all time? I don't think so, but I'm not going to complain about our ownership at this point when I look around the league and see, like, there's a team like the Bears, teams like the Cardinals that just, like, their owners don't even care about what really happens on the field. They're just happy to have a team for the most part. So I think Amy has some issues. I think she's made some mistakes, but at the same time, I'm not going to throw her completely all the way under the bus. I mean, I did do a video where I used her face and put like clown makeup on it for a video this time last year when she fired Mike Vrabel, but she's got her faults. But I think at the end of the day, she wants to win. She wants to be successful. She's done, whatever. So I'm not going to completely throw her under the bus. Man, you should have gotten stomped today. Yeah, I was fully, braced for when I came home from the Titans game to turn that on and just have another just horrible, disappointing resulting match. But it was the weird thing about this United team is like, the effort level is just match to match. Like today, they just fought for it. They just went for it. Like I don't know if it's just like I'm sure it's easier to be more motivated to play against a team like Liverpool than like a team like Brentford or whatever. But that's going to be the key. Is you just got to get these players' brains wired where every match is important. Every match you got to go for it because the talent's there. I mean, like there's definitely some players that aren't that good, but the talent is there to not be the 14th or 15th team in the league, whatever we are right now. So yeah. Richard jumping in says, if the Vikings and Lions can turn things around, so can the Titans. Yeah, I mean, the Lions are the greatest example you can look at where hundreds of years of just for futility, just terrible. Wanted the Ford family to sell for forever. Everybody hated the ownership there, hated everything about it, and they hit on the right coach. They hit on the right general manager. They hit on the right handful of players, and things just go right. That's just how NFL is different from like every other sport, where like you just gotta like luck into it sometimes. Nobody talked about Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady was like a 6th round draft pick. Sometimes there's a lot more luck, I think, that goes into being successful in the NFL than there is in any other sport in the world. And that's why I kind of, don't completely throw Amy Adams, the Tennessee Titans owner, under the bus, because I think she wants to win. I think she wants the team to be successful. We just haven't hit the right things, right? Just have not hit the correct, decisions in the most part there. So can't throw her under the bus. And Wormy, I talked about this a lot the last couple of videos as we wrapped up 2024. My teams have had historically bad years this season. I mean, like calendar year 2024 meant for Manchester United has to be right up there in terms of at least on the field. Obviously, there's been some horrible off the field things in Manchester United's history, going back to the Munich air disaster. But on the field performance, 2024 has to be up there as one of the worst calendar years for them. I mean, we have a short history, but Nashville SC, 100% worst year in their history was 2024. And Titans, there have been some bad years. We've been the worst team in the NFL before, but I mean, this felt like the worst year. I don't know what it was, but this felt like the worst year in Titans history. So yeah, 2024, disaster across the board, but I've made 2025 the year of positivity, the year of things not sucking, pushing all that stuff, pushing all that negativity out, just trying to find the positives, trying to, accept things I can't control. I can't control if my teams are good or not. I'm not going to I probably still will, but I mean, I'm going to try to not be so mentally wrapped up in how bad they suck. So that's the goal for 2025. Like I said, my thought process on the first overall pick right now, if they made me make a decision right now, which thankfully I'm not the person who has to do this, and thankfully it doesn't have to be today, I would try to orchestrate some kind of mega trade to get as many picks and potentially maybe like a marquee player. That's what I would do with the first overall pick, because I'm just not sold enough on Shedeur or Cam Ward to make them, that big of a priority pick. I could be swayed. A lot can happen in the next few months. Obviously, we're going to have free agency and the possibility of other, moves. There's going to be the chance for the Titans to bring in a veteran quarterback. I know there's been Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, even Aaron Rodgers. Names have been tossed around as being out there on the market. Sam Darnold has been mentioned, but I would be so shocked if the Vikings let him walk. Like, I don't know how you let him have the season he's had. And even though you drafted J.J. McCarthy, he's a complete unknown. I don't know how you don't, do whatever you can to keep Sam Darnold. So we'll see what happens, because I think that'll be a heavy influence on ultimately what the Titans do. If they bring in a veteran quarterback, whatever type player that they feel can get us through the next, 2, 3, 4 years, that takes some of the pressure off trying to maybe think to draft a quarterback. So I lean trade, but obviously what happens in the market, free agency, trades even, is going to influence a lot of that. One thing I do think could influence this pick, talking about, going back to Amy Adams, who Richard brought up, who we talked about a lot here. We are opening a brand new stadium here in Nashville for the Titans in 2027. New Nissan Stadium, state-of-the-art, enclosed, climate-controlled stadium, built to be like a marquee location to host, Super Bowls, WrestleManias, Royal Rumbles, major soccer matches. We missed the World Cup window, not getting it ready in 2026. But it's basically meant to be like top-notch tourism, bring top-level events to Nashville type of stadium. And the tickets are going to sell themselves for the most part because everybody's going to be excited for the new venue, the new building, and everything like that. But I do feel there will be some motivation to where opening a new stadium, opening a new era, so to speak, for the Titans, there's going to want to be some kind of marquee selling point of that. So, Abdul Carter, pass rusher out of Penn State, excellent player. Would love to be the player we take in this draft if I'm a Tennessee Titans, but because the owner kind of pick up the phone and go, hey, I got to put a banner outside a new Nissan Stadium of like our marquee franchise player. And it ain't going to be Abdul Carter. It's going to be Shedeur Sanders. It's going to be Cam Ward. It's going to be that type of player. Does that have an influence on the decision we make in this draft here? That's something to think about. It's going to be outside the box. It won't be brought up by many draft analysts, but I think that's something that will come into play in this process just because what we do in this draft really is starting the window of what the team's going to look like in 2027. Detroit strikes first. I'm watching the Detroit Vikings game. Detroit draws first blood there. Gibbs, if you got Gibbs' first touchdown scorer, congratulations to you. But yeah, just a kind of side thing to keep an eye on if you're like kind of wondering outside motivations, things beyond on the field, beyond, that type of stuff. I think, there is going to be an idea that we need a franchise player. Like, I think Amy Adams Strunk is going to want to build a new Nissan Stadium. She's not building it. The city of Nashville and taxpayers are building it. But I don't think she's going to want to have a banner that's a 45-year-old Kirk Cousins picture on the side of it. I think she's going to want a young, exciting, flashy, high-level, exciting national media style player that she can like sell the franchise as a part of there. So that's kind of something to also keep in mind to think about as we get a little closer to the draft here today. A couple of things came in. Let's see what else we said. Wormy, I visited Nashville in September and met DeAndre Hopkins and all the other wide receivers at a country kitchen on Broadway. Sucks. He's a Chief now. It's one of those things where, at this point in his career, I loved him as a Titan. He was great in the community. He seemed to be really receptive to being here in Nashville. But, I mean, I'd rather him be, and it's harder with me with Derrick Henry because I hate the Ravens. But knowing where we're at, just being realistic about where we're at as a franchise, do I want to see the last years of DeAndre Hopkins' career, in obscurity on a 3-14 team? Or do I want to see an all-time legend like him have at least a shot at maybe like finally getting a ring? Because I mean, like him especially, because like, the Cardinals, he was with the Texans during their worst years. Just not a whole lot of success in terms of wins and losses for him over his career. So, I hate that we don't have him. Obviously you want top level players like that, top level dudes like that to be on part of your franchise, but I can't be mad that he's got a better chance to go win a ring than he does here. And I feel kind of the same way about Derek, but it's harder with Derek because I just hate the Ravens. Are you more optimistic about NSC or the Titans in 2025? I would say NSC just because I think the MLS is easier to turn things around quickly. I mean, how many times have we seen, teams that were just terrible one year be awesome the next year, or teams that were awesome one year be terrible the next year? Austin, top team in the West, down to worst team in the West. Red Bull made all the way to the final this year after being one of the, bottom tier teams, barely squeaked in the playoffs last year. Atlanta, not been great for a couple of years, fired their coach mid-season, somehow squeaked in the playoffs and managed to even beat Miami in the playoffs. So there's more parity in MLS. I think there's more of an opportunity for teams to course correct quickly in MLS than there is in the Titans. Because, MLS, you don't have like, soccer, you don't have, there's not that, like, soccer is more of a team sport. You got to get the whole team right. And you can make more moves in soccer, I think, than you can in football. Football is so quarterback dependent. Like, it's almost impossible to be successful if you don't have a good quarterback, if you don't have even like a passable quarterback. So, and looking at this offseason where the, potential veteran free agents aren't that exciting, where I'm not that hyped about the quarterbacks that are available in the draft, I don't see a quick fix at the quarterback position for the Titans. Whereas, I think Sam Surridge takes another step forward in his progression. I think Hani Mukhtar, is, 2/3 of what he was at his best. And we get a little bit more help from the rest of the team, a little bit more of BJ Callahan's system put into place. I think Nashville SC has a good chance. I don't know if Nashville SC is going to be going after MLS Cup next year, but I would be shocked if they're not, sixth, seventh, maybe even pushing into like fifth, fourth in the East. Like I think they're going to be higher in contention. I don't think they're going to be as disastrous and unfun. I think they're at least going to be more fun this year. So I would definitely say Nashville SC. I have a little bit more optimism for them in 2025. Shedeur will definitely sell tickets, especially in a new stadium. Didn't know they were building a new one. That's exciting. We'll definitely have to make the trip when it opens. Yeah, it's a 2027 season. So we got 2 more seasons in the old stadium, and then the new stadium is supposed to open then. I've got tickets with my family for the new stadium. Really looking forward to that. It's kind of crazy how far that is still down the road. We've been talking about it now for at least Nashville for, I think it was officially announced about a year ago, broke ground a little last February, but ways to go, but it'll be here. It's going to be really cool. And yeah, I do think it'll come into play the thought process of, do we need to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of bringing in names of players with higher Q ratings that could potentially move the needle there. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes, if that has any play into what the Titans do this offseason. Super Bowl predictions. Talent, I think it's Lions and Bills. Lions are so beat up on defense. I don't know if they can fully survive. So today will be a good test. If they, handle the Vikings, which right now they're looking pretty solid. They've got them backed up. They're up 7-0. They're gritty. They're just a team that's going to grind it out. They're going to win. I think, Dan Campbell is who a lot of people think Mike Vrabel is, and he's not. But I like the Lions. Dan Campbell is who Mike Vrabel could have been if Mike Vrabel didn't decide that Todd Downing had to be our offensive coordinator. Dan Campbell got Ben Johnson, got Aaron Glenn, 2 great coordinators to really coach up the team and let him just be the rah-rah, get the boys fired up guy. Mike Vrabel made terrible decisions at all his coaching positions around him. So a little bit of side note comparison there. But I like the Lions a lot. I'm a little worried because their defense is so banged up and so injured. But, I'd probably lean them still. Bills, I just think, are so talented. It feels like a lot's going their way this season, but it's almost impossible to pick against the Chiefs until somebody beats them. They were they're 15-1 or whatever, 16-1. No, 15-2 because they lost today in the game they just threw away because they didn't play anybody. But they're just the Chiefs. Until somebody beats the Chiefs, you kind of gotta just stick with the Chiefs. Still amazed by Jaden Daniels on Washington this season. Yeah, he's one of those ones where I see that, and Bo Nix, my buddy, keeps bringing up Bo Nix to me, where I'm looking at I'm not sold on the quarterbacks in this draft. But if you told me last year Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels were going to come in and take their teams to the playoffs, I would have also not been that sold on either one of them last year. So once again, I'm not some expert on football. I'm just a fan who just watches the games and has my stupid opinions. So I would have been wrong on both of those. I might be wrong on both the quarterbacks this year. So maybe that is, something to keep in mind if the Titans are thinking about those type things. Once again, you get the right guy, you get the right quarterback, things can go in the right direction quickly for this direction. What are they going to do with the old one? They're going to tear down the current Nissan Stadium when new Nissan Stadium is completed. And they're kind of redeveloping the entire area over there into just kind of a big entertainment district. There's going to be bars, restaurants, hotels, green space, retail space. Basically, it's just kind of become what the trend has been for American sports stadiums, is moving more and more to, not the old model where you just plop down a stadium and put like 10,000 parking spots around it in the middle of nowhere. They want to build up stuff around the stadium because they want people to come to spend the whole day at this stadium site and even come, in the off season too. I went to the best example, kind of one of the early examples I saw of this was the Braves built a brand new stadium a couple of years back, and they built an entire, basically, community around it, the Battery in Atlanta, around what's now Truist Park. And it was kind of crazy because they just built, their last new stadium in 1996, Turner Field. So it wasn't like stadium was that old. It wasn't that, out of date. It wasn't that bad of a stadium. It's still a really nice stadium. But basically the logic was, Turner Field in Atlanta, not in a great part of town in Atlanta, not a whole lot to do at the stadium, kind of hard to commute in and out to get people to come there. I did a tour of Truist Park last summer, and the tour guide explained it perfectly. He said, Turner Field, the old stadium, operated 82 games a year for baseball season. So that was 82 days out of 365. that the team was generating revenue by people coming to the stadium. Maybe there'd be some concerts, some other special events here and there that would bring people in, but generally that's 200 plus days where no revenue was coming into the team from their property. They own the Battery. They own the entire property there, leasing the property out to tenants, to all the venues and everything that's around the new Truist Park in Atlanta. So now the Braves are making revenue off their stadium 365 days a year because they're using the property around that to drive interest, to bring people in, to get stuff going. That's becoming the trend in new American sports stadiums. They want to not just be a big behemoth piece of concrete surrounded by parking lots. They want them to be fully a part of huge entertainment districts. So that's what's going to happen to the area around Nissan Stadium. Old Nissan Stadium will be torn down. Bars, restaurants, green space, concert venues, hotels, retail stuff will all become a part of the new footprint there. So nice to see what's going to happen there. And what's going to goodbye to the Riverfront 4th of July fireworks show. Yeah, that'll be an interesting one because it's going to change so much. Like it might move over to because that's going to kind of change where the major footprint of, Nashville is. Because right now, everybody comes to Broadway. There's no real reason to go across the river if you're not going to a Titans game. But that's going to kind of extend the footprint of like the tourism district of Nashville, where people go, expanding that, growing that. It's funny, like there was woods behind my parents' house. They live in north of Nashville quite a bit, but the woods behind them got torn down. They're building like a new subdivision, but it's taken like 4 years, and they still haven't built the subdivision. So all they basically did was like cut a weird, unknown pathway where my parents now have a straight skyline view into downtown Nashville. So like they can see the 4th of July fireworks. They can see the New Year's Eve fireworks perfectly from their house, like all the way, like, 30 minutes north of Nashville, which is kind of great. But eventually, I guess they're going to build those houses, and it probably won't be there. Hopefully, I won't have to walk through Broadway to see a game. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the idea, is that there will be kind of a new Broadway-esque. Like, I don't like Broadway, so hopefully not the same as Broadway, but a more, game day vibe. Like one of my favorite ones, like we've gone up to Cincinnati a few times. My wife's had some friends that have lived up there, traveled in and out of there because they're Army people. But they've got a really awesome, like, entertainment district that connects their football stadium to the baseball stadium. It's like a strip called I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's like a strip of bars, and like they're open. You can get one drink from one bar, kind of walk out into just pedestrians only. It's not driving traffic. Walk up and down the street, go from bar to bar, go from restaurant to restaurant, get food and stuff like that. It's great. It's really cool pregame atmosphere. It's great for baseball. It's like perfect for baseball. I'm sure it's good on football days too, but it's kind of cool that they have it set up where it's like a strip from like their football stadium to their baseball stadium. Once again, another example of what that's going to be. But this is, to your point, Wormy, I think that's the idea, is like, this will be this is where the sports fans will go on a Sunday. You won't have to go to Broadway and like hang out on Broadway mix in with like the bachelorette parties and stuff. You can go over there where like the, new area is going to be. Sounds like you're describing Geodis. I think that is the long-term goal of Geodis. It hasn't happened as quickly as I thought it was going to happen. I think that was one of the big selling points that they made early on with Geodis, was that it was going to bring in new bars, new retail space, new, stuff there. And that's one of the reasons, everybody complained about parking over the years at Geodis. But I think the idea was they didn't need to put parking in because eventually they were going to put a lot of other, stuff there, and it hasn't quite happened yet. I don't know if the venues haven't come in, or because it's like the fairgrounds is still taking up so much space. It's weird. I don't really know why, but it hasn't really happened at Geodis the way I thought it was going to happen. There's been some, like there's a new apartment complex, new parking garage, some new stuff that's coming up around it, but it's not quite where I thought it was going to be yet over there at Geodis. You can buy shares of the Atlanta Braves and therefore become an owner. Yeah, I have definitely thought about that. Definitely, that is something that's been on my radar for sure. Are you going to any Predators NHL games? Preds games are always kind of something I do on a whim. I follow the Predators much more casually than I do our other teams here. And, if you follow hockey, that has not been a good season at all for them. It is weirdly, they might be the most disappointing team in Nashville this year, because we made a ton of, once again, I'm speaking from a very high place of ignorance here because I follow hockey way less than anything else. But I know we made some like big free agent acquisitions. We made some big moves this offseason to really try and push and go for being a good team this year. And I think we're one of the worst teams in hockey this season. So Yeah, it's not been a great season for the Preds from what I understand. But for them, it's more of like a on a whim thing, like just because it's almost like the closest thing we have to baseball here, where it's like there's games at least once or twice a week. So just like on a Thursday night, I'll randomly get a bug up my butt and be like, I want to go to a Predators game. I want to go see a Predators game. I haven't been to a Predators game in a while. So like I would like to go to a Predators game. I'd like to say I'm going to go to a Predators game, but those are definitely less planned out, more sporadic pop-up type things that tend to happen. But I definitely would like to go to a Predators game. Can't say for sure whether I will or not. Yeah. Middle Tennessee Pyro. And yeah, there's like one coffee shop at Geo's and that's it. Yeah, there's some stuff around it, but like sadly, some of the stuff that was there is closed. Like, if you're from the local Nashville community, you're probably aware what happened with Smoking Thighs. Love that place. That was one of our favorite pregame, postgame places. Tragically, the owner was killed, and they just couldn't keep it going once he passed away, and it's now closed. Southside Kitchen and Pub, not really that close to the stadium, but close enough. It closed. I mean, we're running this other thing in Nashville where it's becoming so expensive for businesses to operate in Nashville that like these kind of standard, like, kind of mom and pop, locally owned restaurants are kind of getting run out of town because the rent money to keep their properties is getting just crazy and it sucks. But I mean, and that's probably been a big hindrance on businesses, restaurants, bars coming into the property around Geodis is it's just too expensive to get those properties, get that land, get into there. I'm sure that's a big part of it. Someone from Nashville, Geodis just seems like a weird spot for a stadium. Seems like a natural emitter of industrial residential area. I like it because it's calmer, but it seems like an odd place to build a brand new, biggest soccer specific stadium in America. Yeah, it's weird. It was one of those things. Like there was like when we were going through the process where they were like lobbying for where to build a stadium. There was a lot of back and forth. Like a lot of people were proposing Metro Center, which would not have worked because Metro Center is built on top of a landfill. So like you could not build a $1 billion stadium on top of it because it would eventually sink into the earth. Other areas, like there was talks about like the where Greer Stadium used to be for the Sounds. I thought that area might have been a better option, but I think there was like a combo of things of where the property was going to be cheap because the city already owned it because it's the fairgrounds. And the fairgrounds had kind of been pretty much dead. So like the city wanted something new there. The ownership could get that property for cheaper than they could. Anything would have had to have bought because the city just gave it to them. So probably in a perfect world, there probably would have been a better site somewhere else. But that's financial stuff. Ultimately, kind of unfortunately, ends up being what dictates a lot of those decisions. Yeah, like Middle Tennessee Pyro says here, land is worth more than the business. Story of Nashville. Yeah, it's one of the big tragedy things that we've got going on here in Nashville right now is the city's growing, but the businesses that are here can't necessarily keep up with the growing cost that it is to run a business here, which sucks because there's been some really great local businesses that have gone under, had to close. Restaurants especially. It feels like restaurants more than anything, just because the operating cost is so high for restaurants, I'm sure, but it sucks for sure. Sanders will be a bust, says Joe. Yeah. It definitely has potential for that. There's definitely like, high ceiling. Yeah, there's some concerns there with him for sure. I'm not ready to go that far in it because I just have not watched enough of him. See it like he looks fine in college, but I mean, I don't think he plays a pro style offense at Colorado, the competition they played against, not that great, and they still kind of just okay. Like if he was, dragging Colorado to the college football playoff on his back, I'd be like all about like, hey, this dude took this lowly team, to high levels, but they're like losing record last season, barely, got into a bowl game and got smashed in their bowl game this year. I do put a lot more. I think I put a lot of stock into the results that you get on the field at the collegiate level. That's why I was, I liked Will Levis. He's clearly got the tools. He's clearly got the weapons, but it was like, Kentucky, not that great the whole time he was there. So what are you really hanging your head on there? Have you ever been to Daddy Dog's outside of Geodis? It's one of my favorite places to eat there, especially love the branding. I've never had Daddy Dog's outside of a stadium. I've had it at Nissan Stadium. I've had it at Geodis Park. I don't think I've ever been to one of their like actual standalone locations. So yeah, that's it. But they just opened a new one in Madison. I definitely want to go over there by Eastside Bowl. Madison, Inglewood, kind of right in the middle there. And there's that's where Really good barbecue place just expanded and opened a new spot there too. So definitely some cool stuff I want to check over there, including their, you know, standalone location. What college team do you support? This is the weirdest thing about how many of my teams sucked and were terrible this year. My college team is Vandy. I am a Vanderbilt Commodore, anchor down, who you with, VU, ride or die. That was my original fandom before the Titans came to Nashville, before the Predators came to Nashville, before Nashville SC was a gleam in its mother's eye. I was going to Vandy football games. We had season tickets to Vandy football. We had season tickets to Vandy basketball because that was the only game in town back in the day. That and the Sounds back in the day. And so I've always been a Vandy fan, and somehow in the year of our Lord 2024, my 40th year being alive on this earth, the only team I like that had a good season was Vanderbilt. And that might be a sign of the apocalypse right there. If Vanderbilt is the only good team of my fandom, that's troublesome. Shedeur, 74%. I'm guessing you're saying like, you're kind of 74%. Is he good or is rating be 74? I generally think if I'm on the same page as you, I probably agree with what you're saying there. Levis instead of Kentucky, total flop for the Titans. Yeah, I think it was. I think we're seeing, with him, it's the decision-making college. You have a lot less. You have to make the decision on the field. A lot more design plays, a lot slower defenses. A lot easier to read at college level, and just because he's got the tools, strong arm, super athlete. But the mental processing, the be able to read plays. Like how many times this season I've seen so many like the real tape junkies who go back and study the tape will pull up a play and go like, there was a receiver wide open and Will Levis just never saw him and threw it into triple coverage and said, that seems to be the problem, is like he can't process what he's seeing. And, maybe looking at Sam Darnold, who's playing right now for the Vikings, looking at what Baker Mayfield's done, I kind of feel like you do have to leave and kind of just completely reset if you're a quarterback that's kind of had a rough start to your career. But if we brought in a veteran quarterback, didn't draft quarterback this year, and just kind of said, hey, we're going to keep Will Levis, it's going to be the backup. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, we give him another look as a starter. Maybe something could happen there. I don't know. One of the things that is, I will say, that kind of I should have probably been more aware of, there was this idea that Brian Callahan was like a quarterback guru, quarterback whisperer, quarterback type guy, because everybody was like selling like, oh, he's worked with Joe Burrow, he's worked with Matt Stafford, he's worked with Peyton Manning, he's worked with all these great quarterbacks. But he's never this is brought up on another podcast, so this is not an original thought by me. I can't remember where I heard it first, but he didn't develop those guys. Those guys came kind of ready-made. He might have had a little bit of help in Joe Burrow because he got Joe Burrow when he was in with Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow was still kind of new in the league, young, but like when he was like the quarterback coach or offensive assistant in Denver, how much do we really think he was doing to help Peyton Manning? How much do you think he was just kind of hanging around being like, good throw, Peyton, good job? He doesn't really have a history or track record, Callahan, of developing a young quarterback, turning them into something. So that's maybe also a concern, maybe another reason to shy away from drafting a young quarterback just that's come up. Best Vandy season in a decade plus. Thoroughly enjoyed shooting the pyro there this year. Yeah, I wanted to go to some games this year, just never like the stars didn't align. I'm really 100% committed. I'm going to go to multiple Vandy games next year, especially, the new, not new stadium, but the refurbished stadium there. I'm excited to see the final product, see, because so many jokes, so many teases about the way the scoreboard was hung from cranes last season. I'm excited to see the final product and, knowing that, we're going to get Lavia back for another season, hopefully building on that, getting some more recruits in, more portal kids in. It's exciting to be a Vandy fan. I think, they're a team that can really take advantage of the modern, college stuff of NIL, transfer portal, guys that are good at lower level schools. Vandy's not a high level school, but, no shots. If I don't think anybody from New Mexico State could possibly be watching this, but I think I think I said Lavia. Diego Pavia definitely took a step up going from New Mexico State or New Mexico, whatever he was at, to Vandy. So that could be a path forward to where Vandy can, maybe consistently stay as like a 7-8 win team every season going forward. So exciting times for Vandy. Looking forward to trying to go to some games next year, seeing that new stadium, hopefully seeing the great pyro stuff Middle Tennessee Pyro does at all the games that he's always a part of. B from Ohio back in 74% completion rate with terrible O-line. He gonna be good. Yeah, this is I will say, I will give credit here. This is a really good point. The stats, the performance Shedeur has done with not a whole lot of talent around him at Colorado, you got to take that into account. I mean, maybe that's something that, myself and others probably unfairly knock him for, is thinking that he did not play that well. But it's kind of like, well, he's not at USC, he's not at Ohio State, where he's got like five-star players all around him that make him look even better than he really is. Maybe the fact that he's performed as well as he had with the level of talent around him is something that should be taken into more account. So thank you, B from Ohio. That's a great shout. That's a great, I did not know that stat. That's 74% completion rate. That's pretty incredible, especially like you said, with the talent he had around him. Tornado jumped in, just joining us here last night. I still want to trade back and select Carter. If not, Cam Ward would be great. Yeah, I do still kind of lean trade back. And I mean, that's 74% completion rate. Like let's turn my head up a little bit. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen between now and when the draft actually happens. I'll probably do multiple live streams, multiple videos where I have 75 different opinions on what the Titans should do between now and then. But yeah, I do still think and it's not so much, really isn't that much of a knock on Shedeur, because I think, there's some people that like kind of have a knock on the Deion factor, like, oh, he's going to make a show of everything. He's going to, draw too much attention. He's going to be like, but I mean, for as much as Deion makes a show of everything, Deion knows how to be successful. Deion, one of the best players at his position in NFL history. I mean, there's you can't doubt the success he's had as a coach right now so far. I mean, he hasn't won championships or gotten to the top level, but he's turned some really bad teams into competitive, good, acceptable teams. So, I mean, I think he'll, as much as he might turn things into a show, as much as might, kind of be a distraction in a way you wouldn't always necessarily want with your quarterback, I do think Deion's the type of guy who's going to do everything he can to make sure his son is a success in the NFL. So that's kind of, it's weird where sometimes I think the Deion side of it is a negative, but all the other times I'm like, but is he really going to let his son fail? I don't know. I I'd hard to be seeing that. Ooh, Middle Tennessee Pyro. I can get you field passes for Vandy football if you're interested. I am definitely interested. I will probably forget by the time the next season rolls around, but definitely once we get closer to next football season, definitely reach out, DM me on social media, hit me up. I definitely would love to do something like that. That would be awesome. It's been too long since I've been to a Vandy football game. I love Vandy, and it's been way too long since I've been to a game, and especially with the refurbishments, updates to the stadium, I'd definitely be excited to see everything up close and personal there. My problem with Sanders is I feel like he ghosts some games and completely no shows. Yeah, that's the thing, is I think, so I'm kind of thinking will Deion let him get away? Will Deion let him get away with that at the next level? Deion, I think Deion is self-aware enough to know Colorado is what Colorado is. I don't know that he necessarily cares sometimes if they don't play that well in certain games, but I do feel like he is protective of the Sanders brand and wants his son to be Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, high level, super successful NFL quarterback. And he will try to do what he can to get it. And the one thing we haven't really talked about, with Shedeur, and this will probably come up, as we get through the next week or so, there's been a lot of rumblings that, will a team fire their head coach, draft Shedeur, and hire Deion as their head coach? I would not do that. I think that would be just handing the keys to the kingdom over to somebody who's not ready to do it at this point, at least. But I mean, Brian Callahan's not so safe. I think he's okay. I don't think he will be fired, but if Deion calls Amy Adams tonight and goes, hey, I know you got the first pick, you might want my boy, I'd be happy to come with them. Is she not crazy enough to maybe pull the trigger on that? I don't know. That could be crazy, but I think it could happen. But I'm not negative on him. I'm not as negative on him as I'm negative on how much we need to do. Like if we could get a haul like the Bears got from the Panthers, and the Bears have maybe botched that at this point. But if we could get the haul they got from the Panthers and maybe do better with it than they did, I don't think that's a bad thing, especially because if it circles back, the odds of us, circling back and then end up with the number overall pick from the other team the next year, the way it worked out for the Bears is very low. But I don't know. I'm still team trade right now, but if we drafted Shedeur, I would not turn my nose up to it. I would not be disappointed. I'll say that. Shedeur had top 10 highest completion rate in FBS history twice with no line, and they ran air raid offense. Yeah, you're selling me on it. Like I said, I'm gonna, for the time being, it's a long process leading up to the draft. I'll probably be team trade back for at least a little while. But like I said, if they draft Shedeur, I'm going to be the first guy in line saying this guy's the next one. I'm going to back him. I'm going to have his support. I won't be negative on it the way maybe would have been negative on other draft picks. I'm trying to think of one that recent ones. Like if we drafted, I was never that sold on Bryce Young. If we had been in a position to draft Bryce Young and done it, I'd been like, I don't know. But Shedeur, I think there's a lot higher ceiling for him. And so if things work out where we draft him, I will not complain. I'll accept it. I'll be happy with it. And I will roll with Shedeur as the Tennessee Titans quarterback. I am concerned though. I mean, it hasn't come up yet, but Dion said if the wrong team tries to draft Shedeur, he's going to pull an Eli Manning, and he's going to, force that team to potentially trade him or potentially trade the pick. So, and I don't know that, we would be on a list of teams Dion would be that crazy about Shedeur going to. I mean, we haven't had that much stability lately. We're kind of iffy on the ownership side. We got a young coach who's definitely untested. I could definitely see us being a team where Dion tries to pull Eli and say, hey, Shedeur ain't going to be a Titan. If you're going to draft him, you better trade the pick. So, I mean, that could come into play too. B from Ohio one more time jumps in and says, I'm a Pats fan, would trade May for a first pick. Wow. I might be tempted to take that. I don't know. That's an interesting one. That'd be interesting. That was one that was coming up. There was a lot of people were kind of poking the bear and kind of saying hey, just because they have Drake May doesn't mean they wouldn't draft Shedeur. It's going to be interesting. This whole draft process is going to be interesting. Did you go to the game today? It was probably the lowest turnout since I moved here back in 2011. 300 level ticket was $2. 100 levels $20. Yeah, I was there for the first half, and then kind of the heavier rain and the potential for lightning storms kind of rolled in. You could kind of see the way the game was going. I kind of decided I'd had my fill of Titans for the season, so I left at halftime of that game. But did vlog some of it, did get some video stuff from it. I'll be putting together a full game day vlog that'll come out on the channel tomorrow. But yeah, I was there for the first half. So, it was what it was. On that topic of today's game, this kind of always comes up every time we play Houston and whatever reason decide we have to wear the Oilers throwbacks now. I don't like wearing them against Houston because you're just opening yourself up for criticism because if they beat us, they're like, oh, the Oilers should get those the Texans should get those jerseys back because they beat you now. And I like the Houston Oilers. I like the jerseys. I like the look of them. They're just clean. They pop. They look great. What I wish we would do going forward is, I wish if we're going to wear those, I'd like to see us wear the Tennessee Oilers uniforms. It's a subtle difference, but it's there was a patch that had the Tennessee flag, and then the oil thing was over that. And it doesn't make much sense because once again, there's no oil in Tennessee. It's not a thing that made any sense. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was kind of dumb. But I mean, it's at least that you're throwing back to the Tennessee Oilers history, not the Houston Oilers history, which I know is supposed to be a part of the franchise, whatever. But I almost would like to also see, because I do like the color scheme. I do like the way the uniforms look. If we decide to do another uniform change at some point in time in the not too distant future, take the full Oilers color scheme and just get rid of that little oil rig and put that fireball inside of it. The Columbia blue, the white with the bright red, the pop, the socks, the white helmet with the glowing red face mask, and a nice Titans fireball on the side of it. That would be cool. That's one thing I would like to see going forward for sure. I think that's all I kind of want to talk about. I was going to talk a little bit about like Mayo getting fired with New England, but I don't really care about that as much anymore. I've kind of lost interest in that. I think it's no coincidence that right after Mike Vrabel got an interview with the New England or with the New York Jets, the Patriots quickly fired their head coach. I think he's definitely going to end up there, and it all kind of worked out the way it was probably should have worked out anyway. And we can just all put all this Vrabel crap behind us for finally, because now he's where he wanted to be probably in the long run, and we could really kind of just hopefully put the kibosh on all the Vrabel stuff going forward. Let's see here. A couple more comments and we'll kind of wrap up. Don't blame me. It was miserable weather and performance. Yeah, that was kind of my thought process on leading out. CGO Pred says, who do you think will be picked first, Travis Hunter or Ashton Jeanty? Hunter, 100%. I think Ashton Jeanty might, be the better player, but I just think we're at a point where the running back position is unfortunately devalued to the point where Travis Hunter, once again, also for the marquee value, is going to be a lot more attractive to teams than Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty, I would be shocked if he's not, the highest we see a running back get drafted in a while. Like I don't remember like recent memory. I know like Saquon, that's 4 or 5 years back now, went pretty high. But I think Ashton Jeanty's going to go higher than any running back in recent history. But I do think, Travis Hunter is probably like, unless he's just like, I think the one thing that's going to like be a complication for him, and not even a complication, but I think it'll be a key determination in exactly how his draft status shakes out is going to be, I feel like every time I hear somebody talk about him as a draft prospect, they think he should play a different position. Like, half the people think, oh, well, he's not going to play, there are many packages or whatever, but he's not going to play both ways. In the NFL, he's just going to be a quarterback. And then I hear somebody else going, might put him in like a nickel or a dime package, but he's just going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. Or it's like, I think it's good. A lot of his draft status is going to depend on when teams decide what his actual position is going to be, what his actual role is going to be, because obviously he's not going to do what he did at the collegiate level at the NFL. He's not going to play every snap of every single game. He's either going to be a wide receiver who might come in some specialty packages on defense, or he's going to be a defensive back who might come in some specialty packages on offense and might also be like a returner and stuff like that. So his draft status is going to I think he'll go high, but like a lot of where he gets drafted, how high will come down to how the draft process shakes out and sort of like determining what his actual position is going to be going forward in the NFL. Last question, because this is kind of where we started. This would be a good place to end. Who are the Titans getting at number 1? I feel like I've changed my mind 6 times already just in this video alone, but I'm still sticking with trade back. If we can find a partner, especially because, there's always in the NFL somebody that's just desperate. That is, going back 100 years to when Mike Ditka and the Saints traded like 7 drafts worth of picks to get Ricky Williams. There's always one team where if you can suss them out, if you can find them, there's one team who is just going to be desperate and will stupidly trade away so many picks. Right now, today, January 5th, if I had to make the draft pick for the Titans today, my pick would be to find that idiotic, stupid team, make that trade, get as many picks as possible, and try to rebuild the overall roster. And then, figure out something else, the quarterback, veteran, trade, something, who knows. If you don't find somebody that stupid, if you can't really work it out, or if you're just blown away in the workouts and the process and the development and the interviews, all that stuff, I'd go Shedeur. Cam Ward, I've seen little to nothing of Cam Ward, so I can't really judge him at all. But Miami seemed like a fake team to me this year. Like, no offense to any Miami fans, whoever is going to be. But I don't know. They just seemed like they weren't. As soon as they faced some adversity, they kind of folded and weren't that good. And I don't know. He doesn't excite me. Shedeur, I could get behind that pick. Anything other than that, I'm probably thinking trade back. So that's my thoughts right now. Like I said, a million things will change. We could have a new general manager, a new head coach, a week from now, and the whole thing is thrown into a circus. So we'll see. I'll keep posting throughout the offseason as stuff happens. We'll give updates as things go along. More live streams, more updates come. Appreciate everybody jumping in. This is a good one tonight. We had a lot of interaction, a lot of people jumping in and joining in with the chat. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel, turn the bell on for notifications so you never miss any updates that we do going forward. Like I said, I will have a vlog coming out tomorrow documenting my brief time at the game today where I was there for at least the first half. So a lot more Titan content coming in. It's going to be an exciting offseason. Having the first overall draft pick, if nothing else, it's going to make the offseason interesting and exciting. So we have that to look forward to. So thanks for participating. Thanks for jumping in. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your bagels.